My heart is heavy. Rapper Lil RT there, just 9 years old, and rapping with every filthy word you could think of. His song 60 Miles. Welcome and thanks for joining us for the second half hour of The Factor Uncensored. For some people, we have several examples of how parents can negatively influence their children. A couple of examples here. Prosecutors in Virginia say a boy was mimicking his mother's behavior. Deja Taylor has been sentenced to 21 months in prison for using marijuana while owning a gun. Prosecutors argue the child took a gun to school 1 month after seeing Taylor shoot at his father. And check out this viral video of a birthday party posted by 5-Star News Update. A young birthday boy can be seen waving money and what his mother says is a fake gun. Joining me to talk about this distressing situation, parent Lewis Hunter, gang expert Reginald O.G. One Gordon, Waller County Constable Herschel Smith, and therapist Dr. Bernadette Smith. So, Lewis, first of all, looking at these videos, hearing these lyrics, your thoughts on seeing what you've seen with these children?
I think that society, children are desensitized to things that most of us as children were never even exposed to. You know, they're exposed to them at a very early age. It becomes the norm. When you start talking about a generation of younger parents, it's almost even more reinforced. You know, parents are more willing to listen to their adult music in front of children. Mm-hmm. And it compounds from there. You know, there was a time when children couldn't watch rated R movies. You know, now everything's on the internet. You can't keep anything from a child. You know, so I think that children are growing up a lot faster than they used to. And I think that parents, as opposed to, are not slowing it down, you know, and are rather kind of speeding it up and exposing them to even more.
And Dr. Smith, what surprises me most is the kid with the filthy rap lyrics. In the other cases, it's a one-off, a birthday party. Okay, you made a mistake, got that. In the other instance, you took a gun to school. You made a mistake. But there were levels of people watching and listening to him rap this song. They recorded, they released it. Then they came and made a video for it.
Yeah. It's frustrating, right? Because it's like, to what end, right? To what end are we doing this, and why are we then positioning these young children who need to be children, right? That's what I tell my kids all the time. You are only a child for a short amount of time, so why are we then exposing them to this adult world that they do not understand, right? I hope to God he doesn't really understand what those lyrics mean, right? But then also being able to hold adults accountable, and at some point you have to ask the adults around, what about this feels right for you, right? What about this feels right that a young 6-year-old child is rapping about guns and sex? That's inappropriate. So then we have to ask ourselves, how then are we going to hold parents accountable or the community accountable? But then also us saying, okay, I'm not going to share this, I'm not going to engage in this, because then that is then fueling that. And yeah, it's very concerning.
Constable, taking a look at this, what is your perspective seeing this? Do you see these children in a pipeline to prison, to crime? We've already got one.
Most definitely. You know, when you know, the old saying, train up a child in ways you go, when you get it on, he won't depart. But the fact is, you got young parents who's training up children, and they hadn't really been trained themselves. And yet we're seeing all this happening all over. You know, the children, they just doing everything that they have seen their parents do. They're just reproducing, and it becomes a vicious pattern all the time, you know, because they see their parents doing it, and so therefore they think it's okay. You know, they feel comfortable. You know, same thing, I work at school, and some of the parents that drop their kids off, they don't want to follow the rules, they curse the police out in front of the children. And so all these things are going to perpetuate over when they get old, because they felt it's okay because my mom did, my dad did, you know. No a good example in the home.
And Reginald, the elephant in the room, all of these are black kids.
Yeah, you know, I tell people all the time, I do an article, I've been in the last 15 workshops, I've been packing an article, it's called Seeds of Trouble. children we left behind the crack cocaine movement. See, we as grown folks got to take responsibility. We sweep stuff up under the rug too much. We see things happening. That video right there already have 2.2 million views on it. Who watching it? The children? Or grown folks watching it? See, we allowing a society to use our children to bring in money. Most of the children, you see what's in their hand, money and guns. We have to make grown people responsible, and we have to tighten the loops up in our neighborhoods, because at one time, children and elderly people was off limits. Right now, children is on limit and our elderly is on limit. We have to establish, as men, we have to stand up and make some rules back like it was. You know what I'm saying? Children and our elderly and our women is off limit. Do not touch. And if the lines is crossed, men gonna have to stand up. Right now, we are complaining because we think it's too far gone. How do we draw it back in? We're gonna have to draw it back in, because men gonna have to get a backbone, and we're gonna have to stand up, and we're gonna have to take back over our communities by any means necessary. Some of us gonna have to actually sacrifice ourselves to get the communities that's damaging our children under control. And there's no other way. I've been doing this 40 years, and I see the escalation of decaying of our children and our women. We talk about what? Young people right now talking about Sexy Red and her behavior and how she's catering to our young ladies. A nasty behavior. But she's making big money, and nobody's standing up and saying, stop it. Because you're destroying our sponges, which is our children.
All right, we'll be back to discuss this more and talk about how nasty behavior sells now,
exactly,
and how everyone's gravitating towards it. We'll be back with more Factor Uncensored with our guest here. Welcome back to the Factor Uncensored. We're continuing our conversation about how parents, or we as a society, can be a bad influence on our children. So we were last talking about how nastiness now sells. And you mentioned Trina, and I forgot about that in our era. But what were the lyrics?
My booty hole brown. Right.
I don't remember Trina saying anything that foul. So, Dr. Smith, take us there.
Well, Trina was foul, but I feel that the way she presented her lyrics weren't as abrasive, in my opinion. But again, right? Should I have been listening to that in middle school and high school? Maybe not, right? But what we also need to understand is, what we do know is that these young children do not need to be listening to this at all, because our frontal lobe does not fully form until we're 25, right? So even with my daughter, who's 8, she'll watch a cartoon and she'll be like, oh, is this real? And I'm like, are you not able to distinguish between reality and fiction? Because if you don't know that Toothless, this dragon that she watches, is not real, then we need to stop watching TV. And so then when they're being exposed to all the things that you can have access to on social media, because there are no real parental controls on social media, then what are they going to be exposed to? And so we have to recognize it's this trickle down effect. And so one of the conversations we were having in regards to it being passed on from generation to generation is that we've all had family members or come across people in our family where we're like, okay, you're not behaving like the rest of us, right? Because of the way they were raised. But then they have kids, and then they raise their kids the same way, and it becomes one person in that family structure saying, we are going to change the generational family system, the generational family trauma, and do something different. And that takes a lot, especially if you're in an environment who sees nothing wrong with allowing their kids to be exposed to music like that, nothing wrong with their kids talking any kind of way, acting any kind of way. It becomes a lot of work for that one person to break that generational, family behavior, but it's possible.
And I think another thing to consider as well is, there's always this mantra generationally that you want to do better for your kids than you had. That you always want your kids to have more than you had. But in a lot of ways, that's looked at as things. I want my children to have more things than I had. But the values, we're giving our children, in my opinion, less values than we had. We don't have the same controls, I think, parental controls that our parents once had. But even with the controls that we do have, we're not doing much with it. And I'm at fault as well. I've never been into a cell phone to restrict certain websites, or been on the cable television to restrict certain channels, probably quite as I should have. But you know, I was fortunate enough that my children didn't kind of steer in that direction. These children here, you know, that kid that's on the video, you know, he can't wipe his ass good, you know, and here he is, you know,
he's sick.
kicking money out, right, you know, and he's got a whole production team behind him putting this garbage out. And he's going to end up in jail by glorifying and emulating this gang culture, this criminal element. And if he can't find something to do, the great state of Texas will find that brother a job if he's not careful.
Well, you know, the sad thing, they say he's 9. Right now, the second cause of death from 10-year-olds to 7-year-olds is suicide amongst black boys. It's high rate, 90% rating growth in suicide amongst young black boys from the ages of 10 to 17. So therefore, we know that the depression that causes our young people to pushes them into a corner when they can't perform on the level that their parents want them to perform on. Because the problem is, we put them in these pressure positions and they go to school. It's almost like young kids, when we send them off to school and we expect them to go do their work in this class, and we find out that 10 of them done jumped on one kid and killed him because of somebody done stole a vape pipe or other pressure that our children going on. So we have to say that a lot of the things that our parents and the pressure that they're putting on our children, we're seeing it in the school, we're seeing it in the streets.
But we're also so quick to blame law enforcement and school district.
Yes,
if the parenting is not done at home, that school district is not responsible for disciplining your child, making sure your child has eaten. They're not responsible for making sure that things are okay at home. That is a parent's job. That is not the school district's job. They teach math, science, English. They get you graduated, so you know more than you knew when you got there.
Which goes to your point.
We have given so much to these schools and law enforcement with, you all are responsible for not creating or cultivating a safe environment, when the parents aren't. They're allowing the production of, you know, BS rap videos like the one we just saw with a 9-year-old. He deserves to be held up by one arm and whooped in circles. That's what he deserves, you know.
But to your point, right, so there are, like, you can talk to an educator and they'll say, yep, we can tell what you're doing with your child at school, right? I'm a therapist, so of course I'm trying to instill in my children in regards to knowing and labeling their emotions and being able to articulate that. And so my 4-year-old's teacher was saying, like, he's doing a really good job of expressing kind of like how he's feeling. Well, because that's what I believe in, right? And so being able to recognize, I grew up in a do as you're told, or do as I say, not as, how does it go? Do as I say. Do as I say.
Not as you see.
Not as you see, right?
Wrap it up. We got 20 seconds.
And so being able to instill peace versus things, being able to instill love.
All right. Thank you, guys. We need another segment.
We do.
Lewis ate all the time. You always blame Lewis. It's easy.
Yeah.
Thank you guys for joining us. Still ahead tonight.